When you picture a bird's nest, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Oh, definitely warmth. I mean, it is the ultimate symbol of safety, right?
Exactly. It's this cozy, meticulously crafted little structure, and it's built entirely out of that pure parental instinct to protect fragile little ones from a cold, unforgiving world.
We even use the term nesting for a reason. It
Mm.
just represents absolute comfort and security.
Right. But consider what happens when that nest becomes a little too comfortable. Like what happens when the bird inside is fully grown, has all its adult feathers, but just flat out refuses to fly.
That is the exact dynamic we are looking at today.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a massive modern issue today, adult children who simply will not leave the nest.
And we've got a fascinating stack of research to go through.
We really do. Our mission today is to flip everything you think you know about nurturing completely upside down. We are going to explore some pretty uncomfortable psychological truths, look at some extreme survival tactics from wildlife biology, and eventually get to a surprisingly clever financial strategy.
It's a really practical one, too.
Yeah, it is. So if you've ever wondered why some people seem perpetually stuck in a state of extended adolescence, or, if you're just fascinated by the hidden mechanics of independence, we have a lot of ground to cover.
It is a phenomenal dynamic to untangle. Because when we talk about the failure to launch phenomenon, the blame is almost exclusively placed on the child.
Oh, for sure. Society just assumes they're lazy or lacking ambition.
Exactly. People think they are just too deeply entrenched in their comfort zone. But the research we're looking at flips that assumption entirely.
It really does. It suggests we're often analyzing the wrong side of the equation.
Right. If an adult child won't leave, the source argues that the first place to investigate isn't the kid's work ethic. It is actually the parent's internal hidden mindset.
And let's really dig into that mindset because, well, this gets into some incredibly taboo territory right away.
It gets very heavy very fast.
Yeah. We're talking about a severe internal conflict that parents experience but almost never admit to. On one hand, there are these dark, unspoken feelings. And in Japanese culture, there's actually a specific term for this.
Yes, the term is hon.
Hohen, right.
Yeah.
Which refers to a person's true underlying feelings, regardless of how unpalatable they might be.
Yeah, the visceral gut-level reactions that you are absolutely not supposed to say out loud at a dinner party.
Right. Thoughts like, my 30-year-old child is constantly in the way, or, they're a massive drain on my retirement savings.
Or even darker than that.
Yeah.
There's this deep-seated anxiety of, are they going to suck away my resources now and then just refuse to take care of me when I'm old and vulnerable?
Wow. I mean, those are incredibly heavy but entirely valid human anxieties. But parents just bury them deep down.
They bury them under what is culturally known as taikme.
Tight me. So
Yeah.
that's like the social facade, right?
Exactly. It's the public behavior mandated by societal expectations. Because modern culture heavily pushes this narrative that good parents are endlessly sacrificing.
Right. That they love unconditionally and that their door just has to permanently remain open.
Yes. So to protect their own self-image
Yeah.
and to avoid the crushing guilt of feeling like a bad parent, they suppress the hun.
They slap on a smile, hide the resentment, and say, hey, take your time, stay as long as you need.
But you can't just neatly bottle up that kind of resentment. The child has to sense it.
Without a doubt. I mean, humans, and especially children who have grown up studying their parents' microexpressions, they are hyper attuned to that emotional dissonance.
So what happens is the parent creates a profoundly dangerous environment of ambiguity.
Yeah, the verbal spoken message is, you are welcome in this house, but the nonverbal reality is completely different.
Right. The heavy sighs when unloading groceries, the tension in the hallway, the passive-aggressive comments about the electric bill, all of that screams, I desperately want you to leave.
It's like living inside an invisible electric fence. The kid can't see the boundary, but they constantly feel this low-level shock of unexpressed anxiety just vibrating through the house.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. And instead of that tension motivating the adult child to move out, it usually has the exact opposite effect.
Really? It makes them stay.
Yeah, the child subconsciously weaponizes that ambiguity. They use the parent's hesitation and mixed signals as a justification to stay.
So the parent's inability to just draw a hard line effectively paralyzes the child's momentum.
Exactly.
Okay, but I need to play devil's advocate here for a second on behalf of anyone listening who is currently parenting an adult child. We are talking a lot about societal facades and parental guilt.
Right.
But wait, isn't there a purely biological, evolutionary drive at play here too? I mean, the world is undeniably expensive and volatile right now. Housing markets are brutal.
They absolutely are.
So wanting to keep your offspring safe from that meat grinder just feels like basic primal protection. Are we really saying a parent is selfish or in the wrong just for wanting to keep their child comfortable and safe at home?
That is the essential friction of modern parenting, honestly. And it's vital to distinguish between shielding a child from physical harm and shielding them from developmental friction.
Okay, that makes sense.
No one is saying the desire to protect is unnatural. The breakdown happens when the parent prioritizes the appearance of endless nurturing over the actual functional requirements of growth.
Right, when you prioritize maintaining a peaceful, conflict-free relationship with your child over pushing them toward developmental milestones.
Exactly. You aren't actually protecting them from the world anymore. You are protecting yourself from the emotional discomfort of having to be the bad guy.
Wow. You're shielding yourself from the guilt of making them struggle.
It really comes down to identifying the ultimate objective of raising a human. Is the goal to curate a permanent, comfortable dependent? Or is it to forge a capable, autonomous adult who can survive when you are no longer there?
So by removing all the friction of reality, paying their bills, doing their laundry, insulating them from economic stress, the parent is inadvertently amputating the child's ability to navigate the world.
Precisely. Which brings up a fascinating pivot in the source material.
Yeah, let's get into that, because if our uniquely human obsession with social expectations and guilt is what's blocking this transition to independence, what happens when we strip society away completely?
Right, because wildlife biology doesn't have the luxury of worrying about what the neighbors think.
Nature is the ultimate pragmatist. And looking at how wildlife manages the transition to adulthood provides a stunning contrast to our human neuroses.
In the wild, friction isn't optional. It is mandatory for survival.
The examples we've been reviewing from the source are genuinely intense. Like, take cliff nesting birds, for example.
Oh yeah, that one is wild.
When the time comes for the chicks to leave, the parents don't gently coax them out with a tasty worm. They build their nests on the edges of sheer, terrifying drops.
And they physically push the chicks over the edge.
Right. It is the sheer terror of plummeting toward the rocks below that literally jumpstarts the neurological instinct to open their wings.
It is the absolute ultimate pressure test. Because without that literal push, without the visceral, terrifying experience of a freefall, the biological trigger to fly might never fire.
So if the parent allowed the chick to remain in the safety of the nest just because it looks scared, that safety would guarantee the chick's eventual death by starvation.
Exactly.
It's like a skydiver who will never learn to pull their own parachute if someone else is constantly strapped to their back doing the work.
Though I have to admit, some of the other biological examples are even harder to stomach.
They are brutal. Like the reality of polar bears having to abandon blind, vulnerable cubs if resources are scarce. Or certain bird species actively pushing weaker chicks out of the nest to starve just so the stronger ones can thrive. That polar bear example is brutally cold, pun intended.
I mean, to our modern human sensibilities, those actions register as abhorrent and cruel. But nature operates on a different ethical axis.
Right, nature views those brutal actions as the absolute prerequisite for the continuation of the species.
Interestingly, our human ancestors actually understood this intuitively. There is an old, profound concept we came across in the research called demonizing one's heart.
Demonizing one's heart. That is such a heavy, evocative phrase. It implies that you have to actively choose to view yourself as a monster for a fleeting moment, just to execute the right action for the person you love.
It really captures the agonizing emotional toll this takes on the parent. Because it is not sadistic, it is painful.
Yeah, it hurts the parent just as much.
But throughout human history, communities knew that wrapping a young person exclusively in gentleness, shielding them from every single pain, failure, or hardship, was basically a death sentence. It stunts their resilience.
So nature teaches us that holding on too tightly isn't a manifestation of love, it's a manifestation of fear.
Exactly. The pain of separation and the panic of the fall are the exact crucibles where the capability to survive is forged.
Okay, that makes complete philosophical sense. But let's ground this in modern reality.
Yeah.
We obviously aren't going to drag our 25-year-olds to a cliff and push them off.
No, definitely not.
And we aren't abandoning them on an ice floe. So how do we translate the brutal pragmatism of nature into a modern suburban household? Especially when you're dealing with an adult child who is perfectly content to blow their entire paycheck on leisure and travel while living in their childhood bedroom.
Well, this is where we shift from psychology to a brilliantly pragmatic financial tactic. You have to stop treating the family home like a sanctuary of unconditional free resources.
Okay, so what do you do instead?
You start treating the household like a foreign economy. You impose a tariff.
A tariff. I find this economic framing so compelling. Walk us through how a parent actually implements a domestic tariff.
Think about how a tariff works in international trade. It's a tax imposed on foreign goods to make them artificially expensive, which forces consumers to look for local alternatives.
Right.
In this household scenario, the parent applies a tariff to the adult child's decision to consume the home's resources. You charge them rent.
But not just a token amount, right?
No, you don't just ask for $100 to help with groceries. You set a rent that is deliberately higher than the standard market rate for a room in your area.
Wait, higher than the actual market rate. That is incredibly aggressive.
It has to be aggressive to alter behavioral economics. Humans are biologically wired to follow the path of least resistance.
Yeah, I mean, if living at home is cheap or completely free, the economic resistance to staying is basically zero.
Exactly. They can allocate 100% of their income to high dopamine leisure activities. But by imposing a severe, above-market tariff, you introduce massive friction.
So you artificially recreate the crushing economic reality of the outside world, but you do it inside the home.
You make the nest economically unviable.
So suddenly, renting a cramped apartment downtown with 2 roommates no longer looks like a financial downgrade. It looks like a competitive, attractive market alternative to paying mom and dad.
You are forcing them to feel the sting of their choices. You put a hard brake on the wasteful spending because the capital simply isn't there anymore.
But, knowing human nature, I can see a massive pitfall here. If I start charging my kid exorbitant rent and just pocket the cash to remodel the kitchen or go on vacation, I am no longer a parent in their eyes. I'm just a greedy, exploitative landlord.
And that is going to breed a toxic level of resentment.
For sure. So
Okay.
how do you avoid that?
That is the genius of the second half of this strategy. The parent does not spend a single dime of that tariff. They sweep it into a totally hidden, separate savings account.
Oh, wow.
You are effectively acting as a forced escrow service, slowly building a massive nest egg on their behalf, entirely in secret.
To fund the astronomical costs of eventually moving out, the first and last month's rent, the security deposits, buying a bed, all those massive financial barriers to entry that keep young people trapped.
Exactly. You are systematically dismantling the financial hurdles that they claim are keeping them stuck.
Yeah.
But the execution of this is paramount.
Right, because there's a debate to be had here. This is brilliant, but should the parents tell the kid about the secret savings account? Like, keep it totally under wraps until they finally decide to move out, or tell them to motivate them?
While every family dynamic is different, the source argues that the psychological leverage of this strategy is exponentially higher when it remains an absolute secret.
Really? Wouldn't knowing about the money ease the tension?
Easing the tension is exactly what we're trying to avoid.
Oh, right, because we want friction.
Yes. If the child knows the money's being saved for them, it ceases to be a tariff. It just becomes a convenient, forced savings plan managed by their parents. They don't feel the economic pain.
Ah, I see. But if they don't know?
If they don't know, they have to grapple with the genuine frustration of losing their disposable income. They have to make the difficult, mature choice to leave the house in order to save their own money.
They have to take complete ownership of the decision to launch.
And the psychological payoff of the reveal is incredible.
I can imagine. When they finally make the leap and they are standing in their empty new apartment and you hand them a check for thousands of dollars, it must completely rewrite the narrative of the past 2 years in their brain.
It proves undeniably that the harsh environment, the exorbitant rent, the strictness, it was never about exploitation or punishment. It was always a masterclass in preparation.
That is the modern embodiment of the demonized heart. You allow them to view you as the villain. You absorb their anger and their sighs just to guarantee they have the resources to survive when they finally step out the door.
It shifts you from an antagonist to a silent guardian. It is a profound sacrifice of short-term likability for long-term stability.
Okay, so the high rent tariff is a fantastic macro-level strategy. It attacks the financial complacency. But life happens in the micro, right? It happens on a Tuesday night.
It does.
If the rent is high, but the home is still operating like a luxury resort, if there's free laundry service, high-speed internet, and a gourmet kitchen, An adult child might just accept the cost. They might decide the high rent is a fair price for premium amenities.
That's a very real risk.
So how do you make the nest slightly less cozy without destroying the family bond?
To combat that, the source suggests you have to manipulate the daily baseline of comfort. The strategy here involves manufacturing small discomforts.
Small discomforts, what's the battleground for that?
The most effective place for this is the dinner table.
The dinner table. Food is deeply tied to our sense of home. What's the tactic there?
You intentionally keep, everyday, home-cooked meals frugal, simple, and slightly uninspiring.
Really? We are talking about lowering the baseline dopamine of the house.
Exactly that. If daily life at home is a high dopamine environment, if mom is roasting a chicken every night, making their favorite sides, and keeping the pantry stocked with premium snacks, the biological motivation to leave evaporates.
Right. I mean, why would a 25-year-old voluntarily choose to go boil pasta in a depressing, cramped galley kitchen when they have a personal chef and a 5-star dining experience for free?
They wouldn't.
Hold on, though. So I'm supposed to intentionally make boring, frugal dinners every night. Doesn't that just make everyone in the house miserable, including the parents? The parents want to eat well, too. I don't want to live on rice and beans just to subtly annoy my kid into moving out.
You're hitting on the core challenge of this phase. It requires immense finesse. The goal isn't to create misery or to make everyone in the house suffer.
Okay, well, that's a relief.
The objective is simply to shift the atmosphere, so the house registers neurologically as a place of transition, rather than a permanent, luxurious resort.
Okay.
However, you are absolutely right. If the home environment becomes entirely grim, the relationship will sour. The child will eventually leave, but they'll leave out of spite, which severs the family bond.
So how do you inject joy back into the relationship without reestablishing the house as a luxury hotel?
By geographically shifting the luxury.
Geographically shifting it, how does that work?
You maintain the frugal, simple routine for daily meals at home. But occasionally you tell your adult child, hey, let's go out for a great meal this weekend. Can you research a highly rated restaurant and book us a table?
Oh, that is brilliant. You are treating them as a peer.
You engage them as an adult. You let them take the lead on the research and logistics. You go out, you spend money, you share a fantastic experience, and you maintain a deep emotional bond.
But the psychological key is that this premium high dopamine experience occurs outside the front door of the family home.
Exactly. The contrast does the heavy lifting.
You are subtly wiring their brain. You are teaching them that if they want the rich, vibrant, exciting experiences in life, they have to leave the nest to get them.
The frugal, daily reality of the house makes the child think, if I want a better daily life, I need to build myself. I need to go buy my own groceries and create my own life.
You preserve the love and the relationship while systematically dismantling their complacency. It's a beautifully strategic way to handle it.
It really is.
But, stepping back and looking at all these tools, the exorbitant tariffs, the secret escrow accounts, the intentionally frugal dinners, the suppression of the urge to coddle it all points back to one brutally difficult reality for the parent.
Yes, it does.
To successfully execute any of this, you have to possess the emotional fortitude to be disliked.
And in our current cultural climate, that is the highest hurdle of all.
Oh, absolutely.
Modern parenting is deeply infected by a hyper-focus on harmony, constant validation, and the eradication of all struggle.
We overmanage, we rule, and we direct.
But when we overmanage a young adult's life, when we smooth over every conflict and pay every unexpected bill to prevent them from feeling friction, we are robbing them of something essential.
The chance to fail.
Exactly. We are robbing them of the opportunity to fail. Experiencing failure, embarrassment, and frustration are the exact raw materials needed for growth.
It's like we treat self-esteem as a fragile glass sculpture we have to protect in bubble wrap. We put it in a velvet box, and we assume that if we just praise them enough and shield them from every impact, the sculpture will remain perfect.
But the source emphasizes that self-esteem isn't a glass sculpture at all. It actually functions exactly like a muscle fiber.
Right. So the source is saying self-esteem is actually a muscle that only grows when it tears a little bit. It has to experience stress.
Exactly. Competence is the only true engine of confidence.
Genuine self-esteem does not materialize because someone repeatedly told you how special you are.
True self-esteem only blooms when a person can look at a genuinely difficult situation, struggle through the anxiety of it, and come out the other side able to say, I survived that on my own.
It's the profound difference between being told you're smart and the visceral confidence of saying, I figured out how to negotiate my own lease. Or, I survived for 2 weeks on a tiny grocery budget.
When parents constantly step in, when they fix the flat tire, pay the overdraft fee, or fight the kids' battles for them, they destroy the very soil where self-esteem grows.
They are transmitting a devastating subliminal message that says, I have to do this for you because deep down, we both know you are not capable of handling it yourself.
It is unintentional sabotage dressed up as unconditional love.
Yes.
Stepping back, allowing the struggle to unfold, and having the courage to be the bad guy who says no, that is arguably the most profound, evolved form of long-term love.
It requires a parent to prioritize the capable, resilient adult their child will be in 10 years over how much their child likes them this afternoon.
Precisely.
Well, what does this all mean for you listening right now? We have covered some intense emotional and tactical ground today. We started by shedding light on the hidden Han
Right, those taboo, suppressed anxieties that parents carry.
and how masking those feelings behind tape may creates that invisible electric fence of ambiguity that paralyzes a child's momentum.
Then we looked at the ruthless survival tactics of wildlife, recognizing that sometimes the terrifying free fall off a cliff is the only biological mechanism that teaches us how to fly.
And we brought it all back to the modern living room with some incredibly smart, actionable frameworks. We explored the behavioral economics of the domestic tariff to break financial complacency.
And the brilliant psychology of the secret escrow account that transforms tough love into a massive safety net.
Plus, the strategy of lowering the baseline dopamine of the house with frugal dinners to make the nest just a little less intoxicating.
All of which leads to the ultimate realization: true nurturing often demands that we step back. It requires letting go.
It demands that we relinquish our own ego-driven need to be the savior, so that the people we love can learn to save themselves. I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you go about your day.
It's a really important question to ask yourself.
Yeah. The source we unpacked today focused heavily on the parent-child dynamic, but the psychology here applies everywhere. Think about the other ecosystems in your life. Where else might you be doing this?
It happens more than you'd think.
Maybe it's with a team you manage at work where you are constantly stepping in to fix their minor mistakes before they even have a chance to notice them. Or maybe it's even a friend you're trying to help and you realize you are doing all the heavy emotional lifting to solve their problems for them.
You're just absorbing their friction.
Exactly. Are you stunting someone's potential because you are simply too afraid to let them sit in their own discomfort? Because sometimes the absolute most loving, transformative thing you can possibly do for another human being is to let them fall, just so they can discover that they already possess the strength to get back up.
Such a powerful thought to leave on.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.